Hello, everyone, and welcome to ESET's presentation of Do Even More with ESET Remote Administrator. My name is Ben Reed, and I am Senior Technical Content Strategist for ESET North America. And before we hop into the webinar, let me kind of describe what you should be seeing in your browser tab. At the bottom of the screen, there'll be several different icons. One of those icons is the Q&A button. At any point throughout this presentation, don't hesitate to click that button and submit any questions that you might have. There's also a resource list button, and in there you'll find lots of different resources, including white papers, how to upgrade, and a previous webinar that we did on the ESET Remote Administrator. And then finally, there is a Follow Us button that will give you the links to all of our different social websites. But in saying that, a poll to get us started. And these polls will have a few throughout the presentation, and they can be easily answered just by choosing a radio button within the slide itself. And the first poll is, are you currently an ESET customer or partner? And you have a few different options. Yes, you're a customer. Yes, you're a partner. Or no, maybe you're a net new person to ESET. Maybe this is your first exposure to ESET at all. And so I mentioned that in that resource list, we have a webinar. And that original webinar was called Do More with ESET Remote Administrator. And that webinar went through things like asset management, software management, update management, user notification communication, and even troubleshooting users' computers. And all of this can be done from our management server, and I'll briefly go through some of these features in the webinar today. But if you want to check out that webinar, it is in that resource list, and you can click on it and join at any time. But in this webinar today, we'll be going through the basics of ESET Remote Administrator and new features that were added in version 6.5 that is scheduled to come out in March. It includes full multi-tenancy, the ability to merge policies lists, installers management, iOS MDM and device enrollment, and it also includes enhanced usability and reporting. So first, let's hop into the basics. And one thing that we want to get a good grasp on before we go straight into the basics is what version of the management server are you running? Are you still running version 5 of our management server? Maybe you're running an earlier version of the version 6 management server. Maybe you're running our newest version that's currently out, version 6.4. Or maybe you are not yet an ESET customer, or you have no idea what version you're running. So the basics. The first thing is computer details. At any point in time, you can hop into any computer record within the management server, and you can view quite a lot of information about a computer. If you're having trouble reading some of these slides, don't hesitate to click the expand button in the top right of your corner to make the slides much larger. But within this interface, not only can you see important information about a computer, you can drill down further and see things like network adapters, OS information, computer name, serial number. So you can get a lot of information that lots of companies did not have access to before they installed the ESET Remote Administrator server. And what we can do with this information is we can take this information and sort computers. And we can automatically evaluate rule conditions when computers are on or off the network. And we do that by using what's called dynamic group templates. So computers can be in as many of these dynamic groups as you might want, and we will automatically evaluate whatever conditions you provide or ask us to do so. And the interface looks a little bit something like this, in that you can choose multiple different operations, such as AND, OR, NAND, or NOR. Then you can choose from our list of multiple different identifiable information to sort those computers by. It includes things like name, IP address, domain, installed software, and so forth. And so whenever you take this a step further, you can do something like this. You can sort all of your Hewlett-Packard computers into a same group. So now you can quickly find those computers at any given point in time. And then another important note about dynamic groups is that you can set up any task within the management server to automatically execute when computers join that group. And this is important for some of the things that you'll see later on in this presentation and the automation behind the management server to make the IT administrator's life much easier. So with the management server, this is all of the different things from an asset management standpoint that we can do. Track manufacturer and model, OS information, serial numbers, hard drive space usage, or even monitor plugged-in third-party devices. And how some companies utilize this is they apply different policies when computers are on-premise versus off. They define device control rules based off the logged-in user to the computer. Or they send a notification to the help desk team when the hard drive space is running low. Software management is another important component of our management server that allows you to track the installed software and their versions. And it contains robust reporting and allows you to automate the install and uninstall of any application. Or you can also execute command line scripts. Anything that you can run from the run bar or command line, you can execute from the management server on those remote computers. And this is the information that if we drill down into a specific computer, we can receive. And I can see all of the different installed applications on a remote computer, and I can see the version. And directly from this interface, if I want, I could click on any of those applications, and I could choose to uninstall them. We have also reports in our management server that you can run that will not only show you this information, but it will also show you the date and time when applications were installed. So you can really get a full software inventory. So now I can utilize these dynamic groups that we built the basis on in the beginning to sort computers by installed applications. Maybe I want to know when a specific application is installed or when it is not installed. Dynamic groups can allow me to quickly see that information at a given point in time. This is what it looks like to deploy and execute an MSI on a remote computer. And if you want to uninstall an application, it's even more simple because we'll show you all of the applications on the computers, and then you can choose whatever application from a list you would like to execute the uninstall on. And then finally, those command line scripts that I mentioned, this is the interface for that. And you set these tasks up once, and you never have to set them up again. So really, how some companies are utilizing this is send alerts to the IT team when someone installs a particular program, or auto uninstall an unapproved application, something that you don't think should ever be installed on a work computer. And then, of course, all of us have command line scripts that we regularly run on people's computers, and now you can execute them directly from the ESET management server. Also from here, we can do update management. So we can install the recommended or optional updates across any OS, Windows, Mac, or Linux, and we can reboot automatically after those updates have been taken place. So we could create a dynamic group to quickly identify computers whose operating system is out of date. Then you can set up a task to remediate those problems, which here are those options that I mentioned. Optional updates, allow reboot, and of course, accept the EULA. And this will work, like I said, on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So we have some companies that will utilize these dynamic groups to identify computers that have not been updated. Then, on Friday at 3 p.m., they send a notification to their users letting them know, please do not shut down your computers. We're going to go ahead and execute those updates at 5 o'clock. Then at 5 o'clock, execute the updates, then reboot when complete. And you can schedule all of that out directly from the ESET management server, so you don't even have to think about that process anymore. User notification, I mentioned that we could notify users when updates were coming or not to reboot their computer. But you can notify them about any sort of downtime or when they break a company policy. And you can execute this whenever you want, scheduled intervals every Friday at 3 p.m. or whenever they do something they shouldn't, such as install an application that should not be installed on the computer. And you can customize exactly what you want the message and the message box to say, and then you can, once you set it up once, you never have to set it up again. And companies will utilize this when some software is installed that shouldn't, when users broke company policy, or auto-uninstalling an unapproved application. So you can let users know what's going on so that they don't immediately reinstall something that you just automatically uninstalled from a system. Then finally, troubleshooting of computers. The ESET Remote Administrator server allows you to leverage an ESET feature called SysInspector. And SysInspector is built into all of our endpoint products. And it allows you to get a full snapshot into everything about the computer, including running processes, registry keys, event logs, network connections. And so directly from the management server, you can execute a SysInspector log on the remote computer. Then from the management server interface, you can view all of those things that I mentioned. If you want ESET to help you out and figure out what's going wrong, you can adjust the risk level bar at the top, and we will show you items that we think you should take a closer look at, things that are questionable, and that will help you identify maybe things that should be removed from that computer. How some companies will utilize this is after they've gone ahead and re-imaged a computer, they'll take a SysInspector log. Then when a user complains that they have slowdown on their machine, they'll execute another SysInspector log. And ESET has the ability to compare the two SysInspector logs to show you exactly what has changed over that period of time. So you can quickly identify that slowdown. And more importantly, to do this, you don't need to kick the user off the computer. You can just execute this in the background, try and troubleshoot and figure out what's wrong. Then once you have it figured out, then kick them off the computer so that you can fix whatever the issue might be. So before we go further into the new features of ESET Remote Administrator 6.5, a little poll. What feature or features are you looking forward to the most? And you can select multiple different options in this poll. And this goes through some of the high-level features that are being added in this version of the management server, including multi-tenancy, merging of lists, installers management, full iOS MDM, and many more options in the list that you'll see. Go ahead and answer that poll, then we'll get into the new things in Remote Administrator 6.5. Okay, so the first thing, multi-tenancy. So before, in the previous versions of ESET Remote Administrator, we allowed multiple logins, and you could customize which sections of the management server those users could access. But you ran into a problem if you only wanted people to be able to see a few of your policies in the list. Or maybe you only wanted them to see a few groups in your management server or a few notifications and so forth. So version 6.5 brings with it full multi-tenancy. And what we do is we have what's called access groups. And these access groups you will see at the top of all of the different pages in the management server. And that allows you to quickly view what someone in a specific access group would be allowed to see. So, for instance, if I had multiple companies underneath my main umbrella organization, I could create access groups for Company 1, Company 2, Company 3. So now they would only be able to see their data when they log into the management server. So how that setting up of the users works is after you've created a new user and you're assigning their permissions, you add whatever static group they will have access to. And this static group assignment is very important because this is also where you assign what policies should be tied to this group and what notification rules and reports should also be assigned to this group. So you should only give people access to the groups of computers that you want them to have access to. Then, once you're messing with anything within the management server, whether it's policies, tasks, and so forth, if you click on the gear next to any of those different items, you'll notice an access rights section next to it. And this is where you can choose a policy and grant rights to a specific access group. Of course, as the admin to the management server, you will always have access to all of the different policies and tasks and notifications and so forth. But it's other people that you can limit their access to just a small subset of the info in here. And so once you assign that access group, when they log in, they will now be able to view those policies. And so what this does is, because now that we have full multi-tenancy and can separate out computers and tasks and policies and reports, we now allow you to be able to manage very easily multiple companies within a single management server. Or maybe you're a single company, but you distribute the responsibilities across your entire organization. Maybe you have some people who only work on servers and other people who only work on desktop computers. So you can allow only the desktop people to see the desktop computers and the servers to see the servers' information. So now you don't have to worry about them messing something up for the other team. Policy lists. So any list contained in the policies, whether it's exclusions, whether it's device control rules, or whether it's web control rules, there never was a way in version 6 to add extra items within those lists easily. So now with version 6.5, whenever you are editing any sort of list, such as the exclusions list, we will give you the option to append or replace what was previously defined in a policy. So now as a company, you can have your high-level exclusions. Then for anyone that needs even more exclusions, such as developers, you can add in another list of exclusions for them and then choose append. And then they'll get the top-level exclusions and the ones specific for their group without having to go in and specify the entire list at every subset policy. Installer management is the next piece of information. And this is one that lots of people did not like how it worked in previous versions of version 6. Because you would create an installer, then some people would lose that installer. So now in version 6.5, we have a brand new interface for creating installers. And this is especially important for companies that have those sub-companies like MSPs. Because you can create installers directly from the management server. You can name them Company 1, Company 2, Company 3. And all of them will be pre-created in your management server. So then at any point in time, if you require an installer for a specific company, you can hop into the management server and download it. And it will already have all of your settings that you predefined in there. So really, once you set these installers up once, you never have to set them up again with version 6.5. iOS and MDM. If you remember, in earlier versions of version 6, we did have some MDM features for iOS. However, with version 6.5, this now ties into what's called Apple Device Enrollment Program. And this gives us a full MDM solution on iOS. That includes full application control and even things such as web content filtering. And so if I hop through some of the new policy options, you can see here that it will notate when version 6.5 or above is required and when it's required that iOS devices are enrolled in the device enrollment program. So you can see definitely already some new options that weren't available previously. If I go to further down in the policy, you can see even more. And then if I go even further, this is where you can start managing what applications users can install and are unable to install. And then finally, one last screen, which is the miscellaneous settings, which includes things such as web content filtering, what notifications you want users to see, and even setting up a global HTTP proxy if you want to send all of their iOS traffic through a specific proxy. Usability tweaks is the final place that we'll touch on. And there were lots of usability tweaks to make your life easier and make all of the different actions within the management server much quicker. So first thing, when you log into the management server, it looks a little bit different than previous versions of version 6. At the top of the screen, you'll see a few different things: a quick links button and help button, which allow you to quickly get to different places within the ESET Remote Administrator server. At the bottom of the screen is something new that helps with any companies that have a large amount of computers, large amount of threat data, or just large amount of logs in general. And it allows you to, instead of generating the entire log database or your entire computer database at a given point in time, you can turn it into paging mode. That will only pull in the first 500 records or 100 records. Then it will allow you to click next through the different pages of results. And it's much, much faster and much more responsive because we're only pulling in a subset of the data at a given point in time. At the top of the screen are those quick links that I mentioned. You can see we have identified things that companies typically do quite often within the management server and made it even easier to access for them. If we go to another section within the management server is a quick launch tasks section. So after you've created any sort of task within the management server, you can access it easily directly from the overflow window. So if, for instance, I want to reboot a computer again, it's very simple. Just click on a computer, choose last used task, and you can choose reboot a computer again. Or any other task like activate, install, and so forth can all be done very quickly and easily from this overflow window. Also, now contained in this overflow window is a connect button. And that connect button will automatically execute a RDP session with the remote computer. So you can quickly gain access to that computer using RDP as well from here. Finally, we hop into customization. Some companies want their management server to look branded by their own company, or they want to send reports to some of their customers or sub-partners that they work with. And now within the management server, you can completely customize the UI by adding in your company logo or background. And you can choose to either co-brand it, where it will say Company 1 by ESET, or you can choose to just put your companies at the top, and then at the very bottom it will say Powered by ESET. So we have a couple of different options for those co-branding of the management server and the reports that get sent out from it. From the reporting section, we also added a few tweaks within the management server to make it easier for you. And so in the management server, we now have a whole new interface for scheduled reports. And you can set up as many reports as you want at a time in a single interface. And then you can say, I want these 10 reports to be emailed to me at this time on Friday, for example. So you can very quickly set up groups of reports to be sent rather than having to set up a rule for every single report. You can also easily download those reports to .ps, PDF, or CSV at any point in time. So now it makes it even easier for companies who want to send reports to some of their clients or customers. And with that co-branding that we talked about previously, makes it a lot nicer for you from a brand standpoint. In the policies section, we added a couple changes. Now, next to every single feature, there are a couple of different choices. First, you have the option of do not apply or force this setting. Then you have force this setting on the endpoint. Then finally, you have the lightning bolt, which says it doesn't matter what a child policy says, I want this setting to always be in place on the endpoint computer. Something else that is new is if you are applying these policies, we are going to lock those settings on the endpoint side, so that users are unable to make any changes to whatever settings you are applying on the management server. But what we did is we also created what's called an override mode. And within the policy, you can add as many users or groups as you might want, even Active Directory groups, that are able to override the settings at any given point in time. You can choose how long you want to allow that override to work for. And then if it is a developer or someone on the IT team, they can override the settings, disable something, or tweak something, and then very quickly test to see if that fixes whatever problem they might be having. So yes, we have the ability to force these settings now, and we have the ability to also let users override the settings that might already be set on the endpoint side. On the management server side, we also added quite a lot more features that I did not have time to cover today. For instance, we have a standalone deployment tool that will go out and search your entire network for remote computers and quickly and easily deploy an MSI or EXE out to those remote computers. If you don't have a domain, no big deal. It will do an IP scan to look for computers. And this is completely standalone that allows you to deploy no matter what environment you might be in. We also added central quarantine management. And so now from the management server, there is a whole different quarantine tab outside of the threats tab that will show you all of the files that have been quarantined on endpoints and important information about them, such as threat dwell time or their hash and so forth. So directly from the interface, you can see all of the items at once and easily release or delete items for your entire organization. We've also updated our SIM functionality and fully support QRadar with more log aggregation tools coming soon. But we also dump into the common formats that regular SIM tools utilize. We added ESET command line parameters. So now from the command line, if you enable command line access, you have the ability to execute scripts that will turn off functions within ESET's management server very easily. So you can script out some entire IT process, including ESET in that process. And then finally, easy user selection. In previous versions, when you were setting up device control or web control within our products, you needed to know the SID of the user or group that you wanted to allow or restrict access for. Now we'll actually pull that Active Directory and pull in all of your users and groups, so it makes it even easier for you to select and give access to whoever should get access. And so before we hop into the Q&A portion, one final polling question. And the options are, well, first, the poll question is, I would like to request one of the following: contact from ESET sales about ESET solutions, a live technical demo, business trial, information on becoming a reseller or partner of ESET, contact from ESET support about a support issue, or none of the above. And while you're going ahead and answering that poll, I'll pull up the Q&A and we'll get started going through there. So, first question, can you generate a report based on computer or software? Yes, you can generate a report that will show you the computers in your organization that have specific software installed, or you can do it the opposite way. And you can generate a report that shows you every single application installed in your organization, and it allows you to drill down into that report. So for instance, it will say Adobe Acrobat is installed on 10 computers. You can click on that and you can see exactly what 10 computers those are. Or you can run it by computer and you can see all of the different applications installed on a specific computer. Can version 6.5 support software upgrades? Yes, it can fully support all software upgrades. Now, we're not going to automatically update Adobe Reader to the newest version, but you can very easily download the MSI or EXE from their website. Then you can push it out from the ESET Remote Administrator server. And you could push it out to only computers that are running older versions of the software. Can the styling of alerts be changed as well? Yes, you can completely customize what the alerts say. You can't add logos or any of those sorts of things. It is really a text-based alert. Is there a way to do exclusions the way ERA 5 did, where local exclusions are not overridden? Yes. So as long as you have the policy in an append state, then it will not overwrite anything that is previously on the endpoint computer. I wanted to know if they resolved any Linux kernel issues that kept clients running Ubuntu 16.4 from running kernel updates. Yes, that is definitely fixed, and I believe that was even fixed in older version 6 versions. But definitely go ahead and check it out. If you're having issues, don't hesitate to reach out to our support team or myself, and I can help make sure that that gets resolved as quick as possible. So a question about the RDP feature. Does this work with the current RDP settings as defined within the client workstation, or does this override the settings in place? So what this RDP feature does is literally it is just opening up an RDP session to that computer. If RDP is disabled on that endpoint, we are not enabling it. So you could push out a command to all of your computers from the ESET management server to enable RDP with some sort of command line script. Then whenever you choose connect from the ESET management server, it would then be able to initiate that connection properly. What some companies will do is they will create that task within the management server and then also have a dynamic group saying RDP does not work. Then if you ever try to connect to a computer and it doesn't work, you can quickly drop that computer into that group that you created, and then it will automatically run that script that will enable all of the different things to make RDP work in the future. Is there a new, easy way to release desktop licenses from a machine no longer active? Yes. So within the management server, if you just click on a computer and click deactivate, it will recover that license, even if that computer is no longer active, even if that computer has been re-imaged, it will recover that license very easily. If there's ever a situation when you have a question whether a license has been activated or not, we also have what's called ELA, the ESET License Administrator, which is a website that you can log into, and you can quickly see all of the different computers that are consuming a license. And you can recover them that way as well. But for the most part, if you have a management server, it's just as simple as clicking deactivate on a computer. Version 6.5 is scheduled for release in March of this year. So not very long, and you will have this available to you. On that topic, also in the resource list, there's a couple of KB articles that walk you through how to upgrade from a version 5 to version 6, and how to upgrade from an earlier version 6 to the newest version as well. so you can get prepared before it is officially released. Does the ESET Remote Administrator 6.5 use the version 6 license key file? Yes. It uses the exact same license. You can even use a version 5 license. All ESET products upgrades are included. So you can upgrade at whatever point you want. You're not just limited to a version 5 if that's the one that you're running. Go ahead, upgrade, get on the newest version very quickly. Is there an upgrade document that also includes migration to an updated OS? Yes. So in those KB articles, it will describe exactly your scenario, migrating from a same server to that exact same server, or migrating from a same server to a different server. And that would be exactly the situation that you're looking at. Will there be support for Android MDM? Android MDM has been included in all of our management servers since version 6.0. We have full MDM functionality of Android systems without any additional plugins or add-ons as well. So you can manage all of your different endpoints, whether it's Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, or iOS, all from the exact same management server. Is there a link where I can re-watch this webinar? Yes. So directly after this webinar, all you need to do is click that same exact link again, and it will bring you straight to the on-demand version. The on-demand version is typically available 30 minutes after this webinar completes. But that link that you received previously will continue to work, and also you will get an email after this finishes with that link also. Do triggers within the management server only work once, or can they re-trigger until successful? Yes, you can set them up to occur on a continuous basis. So what I typically do whenever there is a high failure rate of a specific task, what you can do is you can create a group that says, does not have, in your instance, does not yet have the endpoint AV installed on it. Then what you can do is automatically run that task every hour or every day. And then once it is successfully done, that computer, because the endpoint software will be installed on that system, it will no longer be in that group, so therefore that task will not continue to run on that computer. So that's usually the best way to go about doing that, is setting up a dynamic group looking for the endpoint AV software and only running that task if the endpoint software is not there. So we have a question: what breaks if you do not use Active Directory at your organization? Nothing. Everything within the management server can be done without Active Directory. Active Directory is not a requirement of our management server at all. The only difference is we will not be able to automatically pull in all of your computers until the software is installed on them. We do have a rogue detection sensor that will go out and look for all computers on your network so that you can push the software out to. But Active Directory is not a requirement at all. Can the current version of ERA still connect to computers using an older version of the client, 5.x? Yes, it still fully supports version 5 endpoints connecting in, as long as the ESET Remote Administrator agent's installed. However, I would recommend highly to get upgraded to version 6 as quick as possible. Version 6 adds a lot of new features contained in it that really helps with the protection side of things. we have a question that they have lots of remote offices which do not connect to a VPN. Can all of these functions work for remote users who don't connect over a VPN? So on that topic, we have a couple of different options. First option is you can set up your management server in the DMZ, and ESET endpoints will connect over that port to automatically be managed by your management server. So you just open up a single port in your firewall, then the endpoints can connect in from anywhere in the world. Or you can take our management server and you can install it in any of the different cloud providers that you might work with or might want to work with. So from a cloud standpoint, in Microsoft Azure, we already have a remote administrator server set up in the Azure Marketplace. So it's very quick and easy for you to get set up. You set up a Microsoft Azure account, you go to their marketplace, and you click install, and then you're basically done. So now you have a management server in someone else's cloud, and maybe if you did have concerns about opening up a single port in your firewall, then you can have all of the endpoints connect directly to there. We have KB articles that will walk you through that process that I just talked about, as well as setting it up in any other cloud provider that you might choose. Will there be a mobile app for ERA access? So there is no mobile app because the interface fully supports mobile web browsers. So there is a web-optimized version of the management server that you simply log in with your mobile device, and it will automatically take effect on that mobile device. So you really can access it from any device or any OS that you might be on. And it looks like we have time for one more question, or two more questions actually. First is, can you still have two ESET remote administrators in the same network? Yes, you definitely can. However, there really is no longer a need to have more than one remote administrator in the same network, because now we've developed something called the ESET Remote Administrator Proxy that will suffice as what you had in previous times with two remote administrator servers. So really, I would recommend, if you are thinking about doing that, contact our support team and we can walk you through what the best practices might be. And then final question, can you install ESET on a Linux server without any sort of X interface? Yes, ESET fully supports command line only Linux-based distros. As long as it's higher than kernel 2.6, ESET will work on whatever Linux distro you might have. And in saying that, thank you very much, everyone, for hopping on our webinar today. If I did not get to your question, don't worry. We will definitely get to all of these questions. Just rather than going through them on the phone, it will be answered via email. And please, before you hop off the webinar, please fill out this final poll question. And don't worry, whenever version 6.5 is officially released, we will let all of you know so you can quickly get upgraded as well. But thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.